of the right to food, the alleged violation of the right to discrimination, right against discrimination, which was raised by my learned senior Mr. Omari under Article 27. Sorry, Your Honor. I mentioned the right to food, right to freedom against discrimination under Article 27. All those fall out of your jurisdiction, and you cannot hear. In fact, in normal expectation, it would have been that the court would have stopped submissions on those points. You cannot hear and you cannot make determination around them. This is not to say that the ODPP, whose jurisdiction I'm going to mention second, denies or accepts that there were such violations. But we are saying that the forum for that determination, the forum for such a hearing, is outside your mandate, and they cannot be the basis of your consideration. For the avoidance of doubt, the jurisdiction to hear and determine questions of alleged violation of rights and fundamental freedoms belongs to the High Court of Kenya under Article 165(3) of the Constitution of Kenya. Article 165(3) of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. Related thereto is the jurisdiction to hear and determine any question as to whether any law, or provision thereof is in violation of the Constitution. My learned colleague, Mr. Okach, tells you that Section 77(1) of the Penal Code was used against the Mau Mau. It is in his view that it is an outdated law. We may agree, probably. However, it still forms part of the Penal Code, Cap 63 laws of Kenya. And more importantly, you have no jurisdiction to determine the constitutionality of Section 77(1) or any section of the Penal Code. And the court must down its tools on that aspect. That aspect cannot form the basis of your determination on board. However, Your Honor, for completeness, sorry. For completeness on the question of jurisdiction, if, and this is an if, even if this Honorable Court had the jurisdiction to hear questions of alleged violation of rights outside Article 25A and B, and therefore could find or make a finding that there indeed was a violation of the rights of any of the respondents, even if you could find that there indeed was a violation. Your Honor, I stress again that the prosecution is not saying there was or there wasn't, but even if you could make that determination, the Court of Appeal in Kenya, in the case of Julius Kamau Mbogwa, sorry.
You are very fast.
I'm sorry. I was born a quick speaker. I am struggling to go slower than I'm trying.
Yes.
The Court of Appeal in the case of Julius Kamau Mbogwa versus Republic, Julius Kamau Mbogwa versus Republic, Criminal Appeal number 50 of 2008, number 50 of 2008, this decision is equally reported on the Kenya Law Reports 2010. And as correctly noted by learned counsel Mr. Wewe, that a violation of fundamental rights does not go into the root of a charge. We are again not saying there wasn't or there was. This court has no such jurisdiction. But even if that finding could be made, that violation, which can only be heard by the High Court, cannot go into the root of the charges before you, but is compensatable in damages.
A small point of objection. Nobody raised the question of jurisdiction and determination of constitutionality of sections. Council is dealing on an abstract matter. My two councils said here they shall follow that elsewhere. So we have not said this court has no jurisdiction. And we have not said that this court should declare the charge sheet effective or unconstitutional. That is the whole issue we are raising. So my good friend JV is delving into matters that were not raised by any of the defense counsels.
Yeah, just to help the court contextualize, when my learned senior Mr. Omari rose, the first thing he told you is that he was going to give you a context and not the law. However, as he started, the first thing he told you is there is a fundamental issue of Article 27. That could have been in record. So what I'm basically saying
if I bring him clear, Article 49 that defines provisions for compelling reasons
let me deal with the question.
I was only finishing that to bring to perspective that the courts here, magistrates, look at Article 49.
And they apply it.
Yes.
They apply it,
yes,
but they cannot interpret it. So what we are trying to say is that, Your Honor, we are not asking for constitutional interpretations from you, or a finding that is based or a constitutional finding. All we are saying, apply those ones as the law allows.
Thank you. That admission works for me. I have actually finished my submissions on that. I remind this court, it did not have to come from the defense for me to raise a question of jurisdiction. We are just reminding you that all the articles of the Constitution that were raised cannot be heard or determined by this court, and we will wait to address them before the High Court. I am done with that question. And Your Honor, we plead with the court to take down that admission by counsel. They admit you are not the right forum to handle issues of constitutional violation. Secondly, I'll now come to the question of the role of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We have been accused for coming with unclean hands before you. Learned counsel Ms. Bashir raises a contractual maxim, it's not applicable to criminal law, that anybody who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Even, anyone who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Even if the maxim were applicable, the obligation to prove that our hands are dirty was on Ms. Bashir. She has failed to prove that our hands are dirty. In fact, according to her, we should have been the one to prove that we have clean hands. That's against the rules of evidence. However, Your Honor, this is very critical considering the context of this case. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, as established under Article 157 of the Constitution, has a role that is circumscribed. That role is clearly delineated. I will tell the court one thing that role does not include. It does not include supervisory powers over investigative agencies. Put differently, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is not an appendage